Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's board meeting. Welcome, everyone. It is 6:01, and we'll go ahead and begin. If I could ask for we're going to call roll, and I'm going to ask from my right if you could identify that you're here tonight. Present.
Jessica Ochoa, present.
Anita Chavez, present.
Alisa Peña, present.
Rosalba Hernandez, present.
Celso Gomez Jr., present.
Great. Now I'm here. Let the records show that Dr. Carlos Margo is not in with us today, but we do have quorum. Next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you're able to do so, please stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, next item on the agenda is our staff recognitions. Going to ask, our school counseling week is February 3rd through the 7th. Our presenter for this is Ms. Claudia Gomez Perez.
Before we do that staff recognition, I would like to ask our Director of Public Relations and Communications, Ms. Blanca Cantu, to honor one of our beloved coaches across the district who tragically passed this past weekend. So Ms. Cantu, if you could lead us in a moment of silence.
Good evening, everyone, community members, Superintendent Mr. Alvarez. La Joya ISD mourns the loss of a true legend, Coach Charlie Rodriguez, whose impact on our softball community will be felt for generations. As the community and founder of our district's softball program, he was more than a coach. He was a mentor, a leader, and an inspiration to countless athletes. His passion for the game, dedication, and ability to uplift those around him made him a cherished figure both off and on the field. Today, we honor his incredible legacy and the countless lives he touched. Our hearts are with his family, former players, and the entire La Joya ISD softball community. Rest in peace, Coach. Your legacy will live on. Please have a moment of silence. Thank you.
Thank you, Blanca. And thank you, Dr. Sorensen, for reminding us what a great coach we've lost, and his memory will certainly be with us for a long time. Our next item on the agenda will be, our staff recognition. Ms. Claudia Gomez Perez, you could do us the honors.
Good evening, Mr. President, board members, Dr. Sorensen, members of the community. This evening, I have the pleasure of introducing to everyone our Director of Guidance and Counseling, Ms. Gabriela Velasquez, who is going to do the presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Marcy Sorensen, esteemed board members and guests. My name is Gabby Velasquez, and I have the honor of serving as the Director of School Counseling for La Joya Independent School District. Tonight, I stand before you on behalf of our dedicated team of school counselors to express our deepest appreciation for your unwavering support of our students, families, and counseling programs. Each day, our school counselors play a vital role in shaping the future of our students, guiding them academically, supporting their social and emotional well-being, and helping them explore college, career, and military pathways. Their work goes beyond schedule, paperwork. They are mentors, advocates, and a lifeline for many students who rely on their guidance. While the National School Counseling Week was celebrated last week, we are here tonight to recognize and honor our 72 incredible school counselors for their dedication, resilience, and impact on student success. The recognition is not just a moment of appreciation, but a reflection of their essential work they do every single day. At this time, I would like to call the names of our school counselors, and those present will come forward. Elementary school counselors: Anabel Valderas, Lisa Casas, Isis Flores, Gracie Galavez, Ana Garcia, Paula Garcia, Giovanna Garza, Angelica Garza, Veronica Gonzalez, Esmeralda Mendez, Veronica Minton, Luz Muñiz, Celinda Polito, Rachel Ramos, María Ríos, Rosa Rodríguez, Irma Tijerina, Briseida Treviño, Maribel Uresti, Aurora Villarreal, Mariana Zúñiga. Middle school counselors: Ana Alaniz, Cristina Esparza, Amy Esquivel, Ana Salinas, excuse me, that's not it. Constance Garza, Yadira González, Silvia Hernández, Dulce Izaguirre, María Macías, Salvador Magaña, Erika Mata, Alejandra Ponce, Silvia Ramírez, Hilda Sainz, Ofelia Salinas, Xavier Sandoval, Italia Tony, Leticia Treviño, José Horacio Vázquez, Nereida Vela, and Violeta Díaz. High school counselors: José Borrego, Ariana Elizondo, Verónica García, Jackie Garza, Lynette Guerra, Lori Loya, Juan Martínez, San Juanita Peña, José Regalado, Luis Rodríguez, Estela Rodríguez, Vanessa Salinas, Ana Salinas, Melissa Santos, Ana Santos, Yvette Solís, Jessie Vázquez, María Villanueva, Lupita Villarreal, Marta Villarreal, Jasmine Zapata. Gold Center College Transition Specialists that work with their students for post-secondary is Ms. Melissa Cantu, Cruz Thibault, Raquel Sainz. Our licensed professional counselors: Don Gonzalez, Juan Guajardo, Mauro Peña. Our licensed professional counselors associates, LPCAs: Nelson Moya, Cindy Salgado, Jose Rosillo. Now you can please, okay. Board, if you and Dr. Sorsek, can you join up for the picture, please?
Absolutely. Thank you.
And just for closing, if we could please have Dr. Sorensen read the proclamation.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Let me get seated.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's my honor to read the proclamation for National School Counseling Week. Whereas school counselors are employed in public and private schools to help students reach their full potential, and whereas school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to career awareness and development, and whereas school counselors help families focus on ways to further the academic, career, and social-emotional development of their children, and whereas school counselors work with teachers and other educators to help students explore their potential and set realistic goals for themselves, and whereas school counselors seek to identify and utilize community resources that can enhance and complement comprehensive school counseling programs and help students become productive members of society, and whereas comprehensive school counseling programs are considered an integral part of the educational process that enables all students to achieve success in school. Therefore, I, Dr. Marcy Sorensen, do hereby proclaim February 3rd through 7th, 2025 as National School Counseling Week here in La Jolla ISD. It is my honor to honor all of you as you work so diligently to support our students and families each and every day. You are an incredibly important process of student achievement here in La Jolla ISD, and we thank you for all that you do.
Well said, Dr. Sorensen. Thank you again to all our counselors at this fine institution.
So,
Next, go ahead, Dr. Sorensen.
Board President. So, Ms. Blanca, are we ready for our other staff recognition? So we have a surprise. It's a surprise for our community and for our board. Everyone's looking like, what is this?
Yeah.
So February 1st marked our one-year anniversary as a board and as superintendent here in the district. And so with the help of an incredibly brilliant team led by Ms. Blanca Cantu and the entire communications team, Wentz standing right there, who follows me around constantly and documents the last year so well. But each and every one of the communications team, we've put together a little retrospective of our past year. And so we thought that it would be important to document and show the entire district's accomplishments. This isn't about my year, our year. This is really about taking a look back at all that the district has accomplished together, all that the community has accomplished together, and how we have come together as a community over the past year to do great things and to continue to do great things during what is our centennial year. And so thank you to the team for putting this together, but I thought that it would be an appropriate place for us to recognize our staff, because without them, none of this would be possible. So, Blanca and team, thank you.
In La Joya ISD, education is more than just what happens in the classroom. It is the foundation of our future. This past year, we have grown together, learned from one another, and built momentum towards something greater. Through every challenge and every success, one thing remained true. Our students, our staff, and our community are at the heart of everything we do. As we reflect on this past year, we recognize the passion of our educators, the determination of our students, and the unwavering support of our families. This is more than just a year in review. This is a story of progress, resilience, and our shared commitment to excellence. This year began with a renewed sense of purpose as we welcomed our new superintendent, Dr. Marcy Sorensen. From her very first day, she made it a priority to listen, learn, and lead. Through campus visits, town halls, and leadership collaboration, she connected with our students, teachers, and staff to understand their needs, dreams, and challenges. With our Lone Star governance work, we began shaping a vision that prioritizes student outcomes, teacher support, and operational excellence. This was the beginning of a transformation for our district. As we moved forward, Dr. Sorensen embarked in her 30-60-90 listening tour, a thoughtful and strategic process to deeply understand the heartbeat of La Joya ISD. She visited campuses, met with teachers, students, parents, and staff, and asked important questions. What are we doing well? Where can we grow? How can we ensure that every child has access to an excellent education? This was more than just meetings and observations. It was about truly hearing the voices of our district and using those insights to shape a shared vision for the future. Every visit, every conversation, and every connection reaffirmed what we already knew. La Joya ISD is filled with passionate educators, dedicated leaders, and students who are ready to achieve great things. In May, we honored the class of 2024, 1,786 graduates who earned $24.1 million in scholarships, 183 associate degrees, and more than 1,350 CTE certifications. These students represent the future, and we couldn't be prouder of their hard work and achievements. To ensure our educators have ongoing support, we developed a district calendar with embedded professional development, allowing teachers to continue their learning throughout the school year. This summer, we focused on building our team. At our July job fair, we welcomed passionate educators and professionals, offering on-the-spot commitment letters to fill key teaching and classified positions. Additionally, our board and superintendent's cabinet engaged in Lone Star governance training, reinforcing our commitment to strong leadership and strategic decision-making. August marked a fresh start as we launched the opening of schools with back-to-school Centennial Style Night at every campus, with families actively engaging with staff and schedules. At this key juncture, we reopened Gonzales Elementary to their dedicated community of families as a renovated campus dedicated to innovation and student success. We also established our district priorities for school year 24-25, ensuring that our goals reflect the voices of our employees, parents, and community. We welcomed 8 teacher residents into year-long paid residency program, working alongside incredible mentor teachers. This initiative strengthens the pipeline from UTRGV to La Jolla classrooms, ensuring a future of passionate and well-prepared educators for our students. To enhance instruction, we introduced high-quality instructional materials, including Eureka, Carnegie, and Zern, the creative curriculum for pre-K and Lexia for literacy. And through monthly principal meetings, we strengthened leadership collaboration across our campuses. Ensuring every student has access to high-quality learning opportunities was a key focus this year. In September, we conducted a quality seats analysis, identifying ways to improve academic access and success. In October, we shared these findings with our staff and our community, paving the way for data-driven improvements. October also brought moments of pride and community engagement. From the reopening of the renovated De Zavala Gym to our annual Cancer Walk, a century of community support where we stood united in a fight against cancer. Meanwhile, our operations and maintenance staff were celebrated with Custodial Appreciation Week, Transportation Safety Week, and National School Lunch Week. And we were asked to complete the first ever customer service survey, ensuring that our leadership teams continue delivering excellence behind the scenes. We closed the month of October with our annual Trick or Treat event that brought smiles for miles to children and adults alike. La Jolla ISD kicked off its Centennial Celebration Committee, bringing together passionate individuals to plan unforgettable events honoring the district's rich history and legacy. In November, we gathered for Fit for a Century Diabetes Awareness Night, promoting health and wellness among students and families. Later, at our State of the District session, we reflected on our progress and shared our vision for the future. December brought exciting moments for students and athletes alike. We reopened La Jolla High School Gym as well as baseball and softball complex, providing state-of-the-art athletic facilities for our teams and for our families. Our 4th annual tree lighting ceremony, Centennial Style, filled the district with holiday cheer, music, and joy. As the year came to a close, we looked ahead. Dr. Sorensen launched strategic planning sessions, ensuring that every decision we make is focused on long-term student success. And our Food Expo for Kids introduced new nutritious meal options to support student health and well-being. La Jolla ISD 3 Schools 1 Voice Mariachi and Folklorico concerts delivered a celebration of talent and culture. High school students from across the district united to honor our rich legacy through music and dance. La Jolla ISD held a special called board meeting to recognize outstanding students from across the district for their achievements and excellence. La Jolla ISD student athletes continue to excel, making history across all 3 high schools. Palmview High School celebrated victories in multiple sports, including its first ever girls softball area title and 11 consecutive years of powerlifting state qualifiers. Boys baseball continues to dominate with 3 consecutive district and by-district championships. La Jolla High School showcased its dominance with playoff success in baseball, back-to-back district titles in softball and basketball, and standout athletes like Arlet Hernandez signing with UTSA. Juarez Lincoln High School soccer team had another impressive season, the boys securing their 8th consecutive district title and multiple athletes committing to play at the collegiate level. In January, we honored our staff for their dedication, especially during the January 21st bad weather closure, ensuring students had access to hot meals. We also celebrated School Board Recognition Month, and La Jolla ISD proudly marched in the 93rd Annual Parade of Oranges, celebrating 100 years of educational excellence. February was a month of powerful progress. We had the honor of welcoming Texas Education Agency Commissioner Mike Morat, who visited our classrooms to witness the impact of high-quality instructional materials in action. We also launched key initiatives to improve student outcomes through the approval of 2 elementary ACE model campuses and the consolidation of our early college high schools into a powerhouse for learning and achievement of associate degrees for all students. We also took a bold step towards building future leadership by launching the Building Principal and AP pipelines, ensuring a strong foundation for leadership development in our district. Another milestone was the launch of the Special Education Audit, a crucial initiative designed to enhance services, ensure compliance, and provide the best support for our students with special needs. Simultaneously, we began a comprehensive financial audit to assess internal weaknesses, financial forecasting vulnerabilities, and opportunities for efficiency improvements. This audit will also look for potential waste, fraud, and abuse, ensuring greater financial transparency and accountability. Together, these audits represent a significant step towards improving educational services and financial management within the organization. And finally, we were thrilled to announce that our data was validated by TEA for the teacher incentive allotment, reinforcing our commitment to recognizing and rewarding our dedicated educators. This past year has been about progress, resilience, and unity. We have built stronger schools, empowered our educators, and opened new doors of opportunity for every student. But this is just the beginning. At La Joya ISD, we are not just reflecting on what we've accomplished. We are building on it. We are using our many strengths to ensure that educational excellence is not a privilege, but the right of every student. Together, we are La Joya ISD, honoring 100 years of educational excellence while forging a future of opportunity, success, and limitless possibilities. As we celebrate our centennial, we remain steadfast in our commitment to empowering every student, every day, for the next 100 years and beyond.
Dr. Sorensen, would you like to say a few words before I allow our board to say a few words regarding this past journey that we've all taken together for a year now? We're a year old, and so I think our training wheels are about to come off, and so we're ready to continue.
I think they're already off. But just, you know, I say this in principals meetings, I always start with gratitude and end with gratitude, but just grateful and humbled. And we have a lot of work ahead of us, but I think the video really captures the work that we've done. And we've done it in partnership with community, we've done it in partnership with staff, and we've done it in partnership with great partners. I look at, you know, Brenda sitting right across the way with, you know, great partners like AFT and ATPE. And it takes partners. None of the work gets done without the support of a board, the support of a community, the support of our employees. But we've all stayed relentlessly focused on our students and student outcomes. And so I think that's what's made this year so affirming, is that regardless of the challenges that we've faced, and regardless of the tough decisions that have been before us, we have stayed doggedly focused on our students and student outcomes. And so I look forward to what's ahead. It's very overwhelming to see it all kind of put together in that way. It's like, whew, we've been busy. But again, I'm just incredibly humbled and really grateful to be here and working alongside such a dedicated board, but really I'm honored to be a part of this community. So thank you to everyone here in the La Joya ISD community.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Yes. Any of the board members have anything to say at this time?
I'd like to say thank you. What a monumental year this has been. What many achievements we've accomplished together, and we're on the trajectory for growth and prosperity. So thank you so much, everyone.
Well said. Board Member Ochoa, anyone else? So you were in the pictures with the drum set.
A lot of pictures.
Share
Yeah,
your excitement?
I was in there a lot of pictures. So no, I just want to say thank you. The video was excellent. It was amazing. seeing all the accomplishments we've done all together. Of course, like I always say, it's a team effort. It's not we're not focused here on ourselves. We're here for everyone else and the outcome of our students. So it's important that we keep that in mind, that we are here for them. It's emotional as well, because it's just exciting how everything happens in a year, and it's so much stuff that we did. It was so much, and we have so much things ahead of us. So I'm excited for that. So thank you again, Dr. Sorensen. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Anyone else have anything to say? Come on, nobody? Well, I'll go ahead and say, so I see Vanessa Brown's in here as well. I can't miss her with her glasses. Every time I see her, I think of Elton John. So my favorite singer. But I did want to take this opportunity. There are so many people that have made what we're doing up here so successful. I mean, we do our very best. There are times behind things that you didn't see is all the reading that we do and the conversations that we have outside of this room that have allowed us to be where we're at. I will tell you that this is probably one of the best experiences I've had probably in my adult professional career. I mean, and this is one that I don't get paid for, right? But it certainly, they always say that what you're doing currently has led you to where you're at today. And I can tell you that working and being part of this school district, there's nothing more that I take pride in than be representing this fine institution wherever we go. And to see us be able to share what we've been accomplishing for the last year with Commissioner Mike Morath was certainly a joy. And there was we didn't do anything really any different that we would do for anybody else that would visit our campus. What I loved about the visit that we had, and I continue to see, is that we have beautiful campuses, and we have the best principals, and we have the best counselors, and we have the best support staff. I mean, we have the custodians that have smiles on their faces, and it wasn't an act. These aren't acts that these people are putting on. They genuinely love this district like we do. And I'm very fortunate that I get to work with 6 board members who we didn't know each other prior to last year. And it certainly has been a joy working with them, and it certainly has been a joy working with each and every one of you. And so I want you to know that. And I was just a little sad that Harlingen beat La Jolla this past week, because I'm from Harlingen. I was hoping La Jolla would have won, but we played them in basketball. But I will tell you, I'm very grateful for everything and the community support. So for those that are watching, we're very grateful to all of you for supporting the board, the decisions that we've made. They've taken a lot of time, and a lot of time is put into every agenda item that we come across. So thank you for that, and thank you for being patient with us. And again, we're very grateful, Dr. Sorensen, for everything that you've done. You certainly have made working and being a part of this board something that's memorable and something that's very gratifying. So I can see the passion you have for the students, and I really mean that.
Thank you. One more thing, I would be remiss because they do not get thanked enough publicly. Thank you very much, Cabinet. You do not get public thanks. You do not. So thank you. Your work does not go unnoticed.
Yes.
None of this happens without you. Thank you.
And yes. So I'm also going to recognize 2 other individuals that I personally wanted to thank, and I wanted to wait till the end, but the team that works for you in your office, the 2 ladies that are here, I am so grateful to both of you for everything you do and for making our job so much easier and having everything prepared for us. To both of you, I'm very grateful. So thank you, and we can move on. Okay, so we're going to get to agenda item number 5, which is the public comment portion. Again, for those that are going to speak, we are going to limit those conversations or the remarks to 3 minutes. When your name is called, we ask that you join us at the podium or make your way to the podium, identify who you are, and then we'll let you know when your time runs up. So with that said, Secretary Pena, do we have anybody signed up?
We do not have any speakers for public comments today.
That's right now.
Okay, so what is next? Superintendent's updates and announcements. Joseph, is that you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead, partner.
Thank you, Mr. Board President, members of the board, Dr. Sorensen, and La Jolla ISD community at home and in the audience this evening. It is my distinct pleasure and honor to welcome and announce to our community the newest member of our cabinet team. A few months ago, we identified a need and launched a search for a chief information officer. The process to identify the candidate was rigorous and thorough, highly competitive, and I'm thrilled to announce the candidate who rose to the top of the group. Haisa Mayasi is a dedicated technology and data leader with over 20 years of experience in education, specializing in data-driven decision-making, cybersecurity, and IT infrastructure. Throughout his career at PSJ, AISD, Haisam has held various key positions, including software analyst, software engineer, senior software engineer, coordinator, and most recently, director of data services. In this capacity, he transformed the district's approach to data, pioneering real-time reporting systems, developing critical applications to close operational gaps, and fostering a culture of data-formed decision-making. His leadership in data governance and analytics has helped streamline processes, increase efficiency, and build trust among stakeholders. With a master's degree in cybersecurity and information assurance, networking certifications, and a data leadership certificate from MIT, Haisam brings deep technical expertise and a strategic vision to educational technology. His background in software development and IT security allows him to bridge the gap between technical innovation and practical implementation, ensuring that technology serves as a driver for student success and operational excellence. Haisam has called the Rio Grande Valley his home since 2003. He's proud to be part of the community. It's where he built his career, he met his wife, and is raising his 3 children. He is honored to have the opportunity to serve La Jolla ISD and is committed and passionate to leveraging experience to support the district's mission. Mr. Mayasi, would you please stand? Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph, for the introduction. We look forward to working with you, sir. We've heard nothing but great things about you, so thank you for joining us. Our next item on the agenda is 6.2 Budget Process Update by Marjette Crespo. We look forward to it. Nice to see you again, ma'am.
Nice to see you, sir. Good
So,
evening.
Ms. Crespo, can I just give a brief introduction?
Yes, ma'am, of course.
Board President, is that okay?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So this is just the first update that the board and the public will receive. We will have Ms. Crespo and other presenters present monthly now, from now until June, so that not only is the board aware of where we are in the budget process as we lead up to budget approval in June, hopefully budget approval in June, but as we want to be as transparent and full of integrity as possible, as that is part of our district priorities. So thank you, Ms. Crespo, for your hard work on this presentation, but also in providing really clear information to the public and to the board on where we are as we are starting the budget process, both with the district and with our campuses. So just wanted everybody to know that this is the first of what is going to be monthly installments from now through June.
Thank you. Good evening, board members, Mr. President, Dr. Sorensen, community. So this is, as what you say, the first meeting intended to provide an overview of the budget cycle, how we are going to do the process for the 25-26 school year budget. We want to start the presentation, and let me accelerate myself, understanding where we are, the environment where we are going to plan the budget for the year, what is the implementation, what we had done this year to prepare for the budget, the strategic budgeting process that we are doing for 25-26, and the next steps. I want to center our presentation in where we are standing today, the daily attendance and the membership of the district. Here you have 12 years of data, and that dotted line that you see in 2024 is actual numbers. 25 is our numbers as of December, and 26 is our projection based on the trend that we are seeing. So I want us to center on that because there are decisions that we had to make based on the loss of almost 8,000 students. Remembering how we got here, when we were at this time of the year last year, we were reviewing where the district finance and the organizational well-being was at that point. We were clear, we were finishing ESSER. We were clear that we have 4 rounds of evaluation of our staffing by TASB, and we were not following them, discovering that we have over 500 positions in ESSER that needed to be addressed, and an estimation of funding that needed to be allocated somewhere else. So when we evaluated that information, we have $28 million on position cleanup and $26 million on salaries on temporary ESSER funding, creating a shortfall of $55.3 million. Let's be clear, some of these temporary salaries were positions that were necessary in the district, and we needed to make hard decisions to keep them in order to be able to provide the services that we needed. How we address that deficit? We did central office realignment, addressing some of the staff that was in central office and the structure and responsibilities. We eliminated 174 positions that were no classroom-based, and we had to address 395 essential positions that were adjusting from ESSER to local budget. We also, thank you board for that, approved $5 million from disaster pennies from the storms and the disasters that happened in 2022. And we review contracts and some initiatives will give us a reduction an overall reduction of $44.9 million, reducing our deficit to $10.4 million. During that process, we addressed the budget. We created a budgeting process protocol. Dr. Sorensen created a budget protocol, keeping the schools at the center of the budget process, empowering principals to drive campus decisions, aligning as much as possible with TASB guidance and best practices, enabling transparency around budgeting shortfalls and realities, and using academic return of investment framework to start making decisions for 24-25. After this, we initiated a 24-25 school year. We started hard to review what we have approached, and we had done during this development of the budget. What lessons we learned during that process and what we reflected on in order to develop the process for 25-26 during this school year. We need a cross-functional and year-round approach. There was no discussion when I talked to my colleagues. We need to be sure where we're going and how we are working together to make decisions. We have to be clear that process change requires time and training. Therefore, we had to build on successes and correct mistakes. Things like the position control process that we created has to be monitored and managed, and training on to personnel to understand how we want to do position control. Such things as staffing process needs to be, has been reviewed and aligned with TASB, and we are in the process of aligning all our positions to those recommendations. We also have to show integrity and transparency in the process. We must ensure a strategic alignment on all initiatives, being goals and district priorities, and we must communicate communicate more than once. We had to be very clear, very transparent. We had to explain what decisions we are making and where we are standing when we made those decisions. So I can't even repeat it one more time, communicate. So how we prepare during this semester, past semester, to be ready for? You may remember this slide we reviewed it during November presentation, where I say this is what the 4 things we are looking for in the district to be sure that we are addressing the deficit and we are thinking and learning from the decisions we made during the development of the budget. We talk about staffing review, revenue alternatives, process improvement, and review of efficiencies. Just as a summary of what we discovered, what we are able to achieve, focusing on those 4 areas. A staffing review, we identify a cost saving of $1.7 million since August through alignment and vacancies elimination. We did a leveling process through the schools to ensure that every classroom was covered properly and every student was served as needed. The use of substitute personnel process at campus level could save up to $2 million by the end of the school year. This is helping the schools to understand when, how they should select a sub and how to address those needs at campus, at the classroom level. At the revenue alternative, we have initiated allocation of indirect costs for all grants and drawing those indirect costs monthly. We have, thank you board, initiated a surplus of properties, and we are reviewing with our investment officers what investments and bonds are more efficient for the district and where we can go to generate more funding. On the side of process improvement and review of efficiencies, we developed a procurement process and we have communicated that with the staff, where we have clarity on how we buy things in the district, how we process on approval, who has to approve what, when, and how much. And I am very proud because it's way easier now for staff to know where that information is and follow the process. We also are working on the extra duty stipends and overtime processes. Some of those are already done and in implementation and evaluation phase. Others are testing and ensuring that the staff is aware of how those work. We are also implementing insurance verification for dependents with an estimated savings of $2.6 million. We will not have a final number until the end of the year when we see all the savings done based on the claims that we process. On the review of efficiencies, the property casualty insurance review of the contracts created a $2.1 million in savings. The improved documentation and reimbursement process for SHARs has been an improvement that I'm very proud of. We have worked with the Dr. Little's division and special education and with an organization that is helping us to request the reimbursement of the services that we do for our special education students. And that's what SHARS stands for, is the system to request or reimbursement. And that right now put us on a spot where we can claim and appeal a denial of a claim of $1.4 million. This is really important because it has not only improved the processes of the district, but it's helping us recover from errors from previous years. Also, the use of quality seed analysis as one data point to initiate our system of great schools work. And we have done some changes on potential school actions. I'm sorry, I'm going forward instead of backwards. On potential school action and the facilities plan. After that, that's what we had done through the year. I want you to center you back again on what is the climate and what is going to create the situation where we are going to work for budgeting. We have our revenue is driven in Texas by the average daily attendance and our enrollment. How many students are in our classrooms is what drives our budget. As you saw before, and I'm repeating the same slide, our attendance and our membership had been on decline the last 10 years. We have to be clear on that, and we have to have considerations on our budget planning in order to be transparent, but to also lean in what is true and what is real in our organization. So what are the considerations that we are going to take in account? There is no significant increase expected in the state per pupil allocation. We are in a legislative year, and we have to wait for what the legislation decides, but there is no projections of an increase on that revenue that has been stagnant since 2019. We expect a loss of approximately $6 million due to the enrollment and attendance trend. We will lose the disaster pennies approved last June because that was a one-year solution, a situation that the law authorizes us to execute, and that is for the order of $5 million. And we are expecting, or we are not expecting, an increase on maintenance and operation rate by the legislation. So we not only not having more allocation per pupil, but we will not receive maintenance and operation funding above of what we have received so far. And the maintenance of operation funding is what helps us to maintain our buses, our infrastructure, get services to our students. And finally, we had to ensure we align staffing with actual enrollment. We cannot get away from that. We have to right size our district. So what are the financial assumptions we have been discussing so far? We have a budget deficit of $10.4 million, a loss of revenue due to enrollment attendance estimated at $6 million, the loss of the disaster pennies revenue for around $5 million. That's a total of $21.4 million estimation on loss. We have worked very hard to do savings through processes and efficiencies, as we discussed before, in the order of $3.7 million for personnel process improvement, school actions around $1.6 million, and efficiency review for all $5.5 million. So that is putting us in $11 million difference that we have to cover with the budget process. So how we are going to do this? Now that we are clear where we are, we had to work. So my colleagues and I are rolling our sleeves, and we are initiating the process as we discussed before with these 4 areas that we're going to focusing on. We already did the kickoff, where we discussed the budget calendar, we show what we were going to do and when we are expecting to finish. We have initiated and worked with the staff that is responsible of budgets, work in their own departments and communicating what is the training, what is the expectations, where we want to go. We did development of the personnel. We are working with campuses too on understanding what the budget means. And also during the development is the transparency and this commitment to come monthly to the board to show what we are doing in the budget process. And of course, the creation of that budget proposal showing what we are doing and what is the proposed budget for 25-26. This year, we are doing a framework very similar to what we did based on the efficiencies that we generated through the reflection process, knowing what we had to improve and what we had to hone in. And we know we need to be aligned to the district priorities. We know we need to be centered on students' outcome. We know we have to have stakeholder support and include everybody and inform them of where we are and what we are doing. We have to be fiscally sound and responsible, and we need to use academic return of investment to show that our funding goes to where our students need most in order to perform. We have to be committed to educational excellence, and to be committed to educational excellence needs to show that our funding goes to our students. What is the timeline? Right now we are in February, so we are still working on stakeholder input. This doesn't stop. We are taking up an opportunity to review everything we get from principals and for discussion with the staff and from the superintendent's reviews and work that she's doing with the community. But we are going to do, during this month, we are starting working on our revenue projections with the limitations of the legislation and how that is going to end up being for us. We are working, finalizing campus staff allocations and salaries review. By March, departments and campus will have budgets, and they will start finalizing their plans and discussing what are the final activities and initiatives that are going to be implemented. In April, we'll have on campuses budgets and preliminary compensation plan. May, we will be reviewing then revenues, expenses, the plans, and getting ready for June public hearing and approval. Here, I want to emphasize to the community and to the board that we are very clear what our priorities are. First of all, investment in student achievement. Second, balance the budget. Third, pay raise to all of our staff, because we want to recognize the hard work we are doing and how our teachers and our staff is working for our students. And fourth, our high-quality instructional materials to be able to show the impact that we are doing for student achievement. Revisiting academic return of investment. These slides here to show how we are embedding this thinking and this framework across the planning. We had to have clear objectives, we had to have metrics, and clear definition of success to be able to say that what we are doing is aligned to what we want to achieve. So we have objectives, metrics, definition of success, SMART goals. That's going to help us to be able to demonstrate that what we are using the funds for is impacting. This planning process is pretty much the same for both campuses and departments, but I have a little different definition for each one of them to emphasize the different steps. But the planning process is the same. We do a need assessment to know where we are and where we need to go, an implementation where we are clear what our strategies are and the initiatives we need to do, and an evaluation phase to ensure that those initiatives are really working. So for the departments, we have our business partners, our budget buddies, that have been working with our colleagues, with our divisions and our campuses to introduce zero-based budget and to train on what we are working, what we are going to do, and how the alignment and budget of the budget works and how they have to plan. So we have in the alignment, in the form they are completing, all departments have to align their budgets with the goals, with the priorities. They had to describe what expenses are for and the measure of success. We are going to have, as division chiefs, a presentation to the superintendent and the cabinet where we are ensuring that all high-impact initiatives and all budgeted activities are clear and aligned to the expectations. During that budget hearing, we are going to have the opportunity also to discuss what is our bottom line as a division, what is our goals, and how the activities that we are budgeting are aligned to those goals and how those goals align to the district goals. And finally, the ARI, we are going to discuss, we have to start aligning those initiatives with the budget, as I said before, and we are going to support the Division of Business and Finance is going to support my colleagues to be sure that we initiate this work. This is a long time. This is something that requires practice and learning, and we are committed to it, so we are embarking on that. For the campuses, we have the advantage that we have a requirement by the Texas Education Code with the campus improvement plans that is requiring the comprehensive need assessment done, and it has specific requirements for campuses to complete that align to what we want to do. All the root cause analysis have to be done in order to know what are my gaps in student performance, and define the strategic drivers that are going to decide or help us to make decisions on what are our priorities and our initiatives that we have to implement. We are going to provide the campuses the budget and staff allocation so they know how to combine this information need assessment, budget, staff allocation, and make decisions, and they also will have clear expectations of the use of funds, but still these principals will be autonomous on the decisions after doing their need assessment. Finally, they will complete the campus improvement plan with this information, integrating the district goals and establishing priorities and strategies. Those campus improvement plans get quarterly reviews, so we will be able to see how the activities or the initiatives are impacting student performance and correct on time for them to be successful. That's our goal, being successful on student achievement. So that's a long process, but we are committed to it. What are our next steps? Monitor legislative bills. We have to know what we are getting, so we have to be on top of what the legislation is doing. We are going to evaluate preliminary estimations. I am expecting for our next meeting to bring in what we are expecting to have for preliminary estimations. We will considering the development of the facility master plan, that is a long-term plan on how our facilities are going to be maintained and improved. We will review a fund balance policy to be sure that we are maximizing our healthy fund balance. And we will have board monthly updates where the community and the board will be able to review and listen to where we are and how we are working budgeting for 25-26. And finally, we don't hope, that's not a strategy, we will approve a budget in June 2025. So if you have any questions for me?
Thank you, Marjette. Do any of the board members have any questions regarding her report?
I had a question regarding the facilities master's plan. It says that's in development. Could you expand on that?
Which one, I'm sorry?
The facilities master's plan, you said you're considering the development of that. Can you expand?
The facilities plan, so we have to develop on a plan 3 to 5 years on how we are going to address our campus's needs, all of facilities, construction, improvement, and that needs to be considered, but that's a long term. So we have to keep it in mind during the budgeting every year, because we have to have a long-term plan and being sure that we are budgeting every year what we need. So we are in the development phase, but I have to consider it during the budget because we have to do that long-term plan.
I think the other part of that, to answer as well, is that as we have had a decrease in enrollment of almost 8,000 students, we've got to start having conversations about what does that mean across the district in terms of right sizing. And so we've got to do an analysis of the usage of our buildings. We talked about in the quality seats analysis that we looked at, a lot of our elementary and middle schools are only at 60% usage. And so not only is it budgeting for making sure that we're maintaining roofs, and the building structures themselves, and where do we need really costly repairs, but it is also about, are we using our facilities appropriately in order to maximize dollars? And so are we budgeting in alignment with our enrollment? And so as we do an analysis of the facilities usage, is that in alignment with our current enrollment? And so the facilities master plan will also take into account how are our buildings being used, and are we being fiscally sound in alignment with our enrollment as we make projections on how we want to continue to fund this particular space.
Yeah, I do like the graph you presented where it shows enrollment decreasing. Well, I don't like that, but I like that you're showing that. And yeah, so are we anticipating how many students are we expected to lose next year?
It's around 900 students. That's the expectation, but we need to wait.
And I will also add, so as part of our quality seats analysis, which we will do annually, we'll do that every single year, one of the things that we are driven to do is ask ourselves some essential questions in our QSA. This year it was just kind of like a diagnosis, like where are we? Next year, one of the questions we really want to ask ourselves is, where are our students going, right? What has happened over the past 10 years in order to have this dramatic decline in student population. As you can see, it is not just a one-year thing. It's not like it just happened. It's been a steady decline over the past 10 years. And so where are the students going? Is it a move out of the region issue? Is it students who actually live in the district but are choosing to go to other districts? Is it an impact by charters? Is it something that happened after the pandemic? I don't think the district yet has studied itself enough yet to answer that question. So as part of our quality seats analysis, as part of our SGS work, that's something that we want to study more intensely next year so that we can be as knowledgeable about what the exit is about and attempt to be proactive about it moving forward.
And then regarding the zero-based budget training, is that going to occur for all campus leaders or just principals?
We are layering this training. So yes, we already have a first meeting, a first training where we introduce the vocabulary and the expectation. We are going to build it and embed it in the training with the campus improvement plan. So there is not two things. It's one thing that is going to help us to get better at it. So in the campus improvement plan development, then we will align the activities with the budgeting, and they will be able to see, okay, when I do tutoring and I use these funds, this is how the funding is going to be reduced and how much money I have left for other activities. So it's showing them how their decisions work on the budgeting side and helping them to also do the planning on how the intervention is going to impact and how they are evaluating quarterly if that is moving forward the needle. So it's closing the loop. But it's layering, so it will take a while for us to get at the level we want. But what I'm excited with the campuses is that they're going to learn it at the same time they are improving their skills on doing their campus improvement plan and elevating those to be more effective on their work at campus. So it will not be two things they are learning, is improving what they are already doing.
The thing that I'll also add, Board Member Ochoa, is that this doesn't take away or replace the foundational allocations that they have. The zero-based budgeting is for supplemental funding or additional funding. They will still receive their basic allotment and their basic allocations based upon their enrollment. So they're not starting at zero in terms of positions. They will still receive their positions in alignment with TASB recommendations to the best of our ability. That is still there. They're not starting at zero-based budgeting with positions in that way. Those are still foundational allocations that they'll receive from central office.
Thank you.
I have a question regarding point number 1, so monitor legislative bills. I know there's a lot of stuff happening kind of in that sector, but for the community, as these bills are being passed, can you tell us a little bit more about how we'll be communicating to the community, right? Like how that affects us as a school district?
I'm working on that because there is a lot happening, and unfortunately, their posture is to diversify the funding that the state has through vouchers, which means that the way the distribution of funds to the public schools doesn't, the way it's posed, the bill is posed, doesn't show improvement for us or an increase that really impacting. No, I haven't finalized how we're going to share it to the community because it's complex, one, and two, we are still in the air, and I think it's a little unfair. That's my personal perception. It's a little unfair to go out and share something from that perspective. So I want to work with Cabinet to see what will be the most relevant way to show, ask the community to speak up if they feel the need to. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you to the board members that have provided some questions. That was a great presentation. I know it's not an easy task when we talk about the budget, and for you to do it with a smile, it makes it sound like everything's okay, but great job in the presentation.
Thank you.
And we really enjoy it. And so our next presenter is Dr. Little. Okay, so now we got to put on our thinking caps because here comes Dr. Little.
Board President, if I could just have a moment. Mirjette, could you just for one moment introduce your team members who are in the audience? I'd really like to also, just wave to my budget buddy who
Yes.
happens to be sitting in the audience. I have to give a shout out to my personal budget buddy.
Sorry, guys. I have Mr. Jose Beto Perez. He is our Director of Accounting and Finances, and he is really key right now helping me. And then Mr. Rolando Herrera, that has been key on helping us organizing and doing our all summarization of the funding and how our cabinet received the development of the budget. So I'm very proud and I'm blessed that I have them. So,
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dr. Sorensen. Okay, as I mentioned to you earlier, we have Dr. Little who's going to be doing a presentation on LSG update, reports on goal progress measures 1.1, 1.2, 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3, and high school English 1 through 4. Dr. Little, all yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. Also joined by Ms. Annette Lozano, who is our Executive Director of Humanities, since tonight's conversation is about literacy. So you will start to get very familiar and comfortable with these presentations and updates. As you know, we have a calendar that lays out how we're going to be transparent about our progress towards our Lone Star Governance student outcome goals. Tonight, we are specifically looking at progress related to goals 1 and 3. As a quick reminder, goal 1 is 3rd grade reading, so really looking at our early learning space. Goal 3 is 8th grade reading. But tonight, we're not looking at those headline goals. Instead, we're looking at the goal progress measures underneath each one. So for goal 1, that means we're going to take a closer look at how 1st and 2nd graders are doing. Because again, over time, they will become the students that help us achieve that 3rd grade goal. In the middle school space, we'll look at all 3 grade levels. So we'll take a glance at 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in reading. Tonight's presentation is entirely rooted in our MAP data. As you know, this is the first year that we are administering the MAP growth assessment. A couple quick reminders about MAP. It is a computerized adaptive assessment. That means it really adjusts to each individual student based on where they are in their current learning. So the questions I'm getting or the questions another student may be getting will be different based on where we are in that process. The power of that, though, is really helping the teacher be able to pinpoint exactly where that student needs additional support. So we can know at each standard where the student is and how to bring that student and others like them into small groups or working with them individually to really drive intervention and support student by student. This also helps us do something which other assessments don't, and that's look at growth. It also lets me show this slide again. This is a super important concept that we will constantly come back to as we think about our students' journey over time. When we first shared MAP data with you in the fall, we said that over time we will get to look at a student's journey across multiple school years. So the 1st grade data that we're going to look at tonight, 2 years from now, we'll see how those 1st graders progress through 1st grade, 2nd grade, and into 3rd grade. And that ability to track and understand that growth is really at the heart of what MAP is and what it brings to us. The other thing it really helps us do is connect growth to achievement, and that's what this slide is really about. If students are able to maintain average pace of growth and keep up with basic grade level expectations, they go on that horizontal journey on the slide, that black line across the middle. And by doing that, they maintain their level of achievement. So from September, when we first administered this exam, to just a few weeks ago in January when we administered it, we certainly expect students to learn more in those intervening 4 months. But how much more they learn really determines which growth trajectory they're on. Am I learning enough to keep pace with where I was, so I'm staying in the same achievement level? Am I learning more and going faster, therefore I can move achievement levels? So to use STAR language, I might jump from approaches into meets because I was able to accelerate my growth. I do have to stand here and say that unfortunately tonight's conversation is the bottom part of this slide, where we did not see students maintain that growth to keep pace, and instead their achievement is going down. Let me give you a really clear, hopefully a clear, example of what this means. Let's take a first grader who's building their vocabulary. Part of what we do is picture vocabulary. So you see a picture, you know the word that's associated with that picture. From September to January, the student can certainly identify more picture vocabulary words. I could show them something now that they couldn't identify earlier in the fall. So they're still growing, they're still learning. But they aren't able to connect that vocabulary word in that picture to context within a sentence, which is expected of a first grader. Therefore, they're on that downward growth trajectory. Yes, I learned more, but I haven't learned enough to actually get closer to those grade level expectations. So that's really the connection that we have to grapple with here between growth and how that impacts achievement overall. So let's dig in. We're going to look at the goal 1, GPMs first, but we're also going to see a similar story with our middle school goals, which means we've got to do a lot in the months that we have left this year to really improve instruction and improve outcomes from students. And Ms. Lozano is going to talk through some of that in just a second. But let's take a deeper dive into our goal 1 GPMs. As a reminder before we do that, we set criteria last time which we will be consistent with to help guide what statuses we choose and select for these goal progress measures and for these goals. Remember, we're looking at 3 things. The first is, are we on track to meet the goal or the GPM as it's stated? If we believe that we're going to get there at the end of the year without having to do any significant intervention, that's the first criteria to being on track. The second is looking at our individual student populations. Remember, with Lone Star Governance, we had to identify student populations that we're going to consistently report out on and set targets for. If they're also going to be on track, that's the second component. The third is how each of our campuses are doing. Again, as we think about educational excellence, the right of every student, we want that to be true across all campuses within La Jolla ISD for every student. So getting all of our campuses to that same level of achievement and target is the third component. If we meet all 3 of those, and one day we will, I'll come back and we'll have a presentation that shows you green, we're on track. Tonight, that's not our reality. We did not meet any of those 3 for the GPMs that we're talking about at this point, so we are off track for all of them. And that just shows you, again, we'll always have this sort of splash page to show you the statuses overall. One thing I do want to call out is we are coming back in a future update to share MAT reading fluency data with you. That's why we don't have goal or GPM 1.3 in tonight's presentation, but you will get that data in an upcoming discussion. I'll take a little bit longer on this first slide just to orient us, and then we'll go a bit quicker as we see the rest. Because again, the format here is going to be consistent across our LSG updates and presentations. But a couple of things about MAP make this one a little bit unique as we look at the top left part of this slide and the line graph. If you remember to 2 weeks ago when we were doing the high school data, we actually could show you data from prior years. We could go back in time and see how we were doing. Because this is the first time that we have administered MAP, we can't do that. So all we can look back to is how we did at the beginning of the year and compare that now to the middle of year. With first grade, you see that we had a decline here, a significant one, 10 percentage points, going from 52% on grade level to 42% on grade level. The other thing to note here that looks different than the others is we only got 1 target in the future. Remember when we asked you to approve these GPMs, because it was our first time using MAP, we asked to pause on setting future year targets to get enough data to actually do that analysis around. That's why right now we're only looking at where we would want to be at the end of this year, but we will come back to you and set year 2 through 5 targets for the GPMs as well. At the bottom left, you can see all of our campuses. Again, we want to continue to be really transparent about how every school is doing. The blue bars here show what that on-grade level achievement was at the beginning of the year. The red shows where we are at the end of the year. And that big black line across the middle shows that target of 55%, where we want to be by the end of this school year with first grade students. You notice a couple of things. In all but one case here, the red bars are lower than the blue. Again, that means that we regressed in achievement because we did not maintain the growth needed for our students to sort of keep that pace. The other thing you'll see by the middle of year when you look at those red bars, we only have 1 campus actually at that end of year target. So from now till the end of the year, this is the work we have to do to really accelerate high-quality instruction, supports and interventions for students. And Ms. Lozano is really going to unpack for us now what those things are structurally and systematically that we're doing to support our teachers, our leaders, and our students.
Good evening, Board President and Board members and Dr. Sorensen. So as Dr. Little has let us know, our data is not moving in the direction that we wished it would for our students. That is not to say their teachers are not working hard. They're working really hard in their classrooms. We see it every day. We walk in there and they're teaching away. However, the question is, why is that we're not seeing the necessary growth in our students? Well, there's a few realizations that we need to come to terms with. We didn't do any curricular changes when it came to literacy this year. However, that means that we've been doing the same thing for the last few years, leading to our students not being on grade level. So when we start unpacking the reasons why, we start to learn that our students haven't been learning to read in the correct form through the science of reading strategies. So we were anticipating some of these changes, so we said we need to get ahead of it. We can't wait a whole instructional year. We need to start making some structural changes. Some of those changes include redesigning our K through 2nd schedules to focus on structured literacy. That means explicit and systematic instruction of phonemic awareness, which are our sounds, our letter-sound correspondence, going back to our basics. The other thing that we did is ensuring there are reading specialists that we have in our elementary campuses. They're working with very specific group of students who are in dire need of this intensive intervention when it comes to reading. And we're talking about our 2nd grade population and our 3rd grade population. So now our reading specialists are focusing on those groups of students within our elementary classes, and also we're progress monitoring weekly and meeting with our reading specialists on a monthly basis to ensure that our students are growing, that they are receiving the intervention with an acceleration rate. Another thing that we're doing is that we need to change the mind shift of how we teach reading. How are we teaching kids how to read, how to decode? This comes from campus instructional leadership to teachers. It's a mind shift. So we are starting to invest in our professional development for both groups, meaning that we are going to start giving trainings on the science of reading, research-based instructional strategies for literacy. We will be going through an intensive 2-year training for our K through 2nd teachers on how to teach reading. How does decoding work? How does word recognition work? Where does word knowledge come in? And not only our teachers, but our instructional leaders as well.
Thank you, and we have a whole nother presentation right after this to talk about curricular and instructional material changes, which will be part of the structural work that we're doing moving forward as well. The next GPM for 2nd grade, again, generally looks very similar here. We don't see as much regression as we saw in 1st grade, so this is a reduction of 4 points rather than the 10, but it's still cause for action, cause for concern here overall. And at the campus level, we see a few more campuses actually showing improvement here with 2nd graders than just the one in the 1st grade space. All the things that Ms. Lozano just laid out, again, apply here in this 2nd grade space because they are district-wide systematic responses to building out our literacy capacity. And we're going to jump ahead a little bit into the middle school space with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. Again, same status is here, off track across the board because we weren't able to maintain that growth, but a bit of a different story here in 6th and 7th grade in particular. 6th grade actually stayed flat. So that goes back to that horizontal line on that growth chart that I showed you, where those students were able to gain enough ground to at least hold their place. What we didn't do overall, though, is change anybody's achievement level. So if you were at approaches equivalent at the beginning of the year, you're still there right now. That's what this story means. So part of the reason we're off track here is because, one, we got a lot of ground to make up to reach our end-of-year target, but we've also got to get more students into the on-grade level space moving forward. One quick thing to note here in the middle school space, because their schedules are a bit different, we're working with those schools to make adjustments within their lesson block, so how much time they have for literacy, to really make sure that we're doing the most high-impact work with students, whether that's one-on-one or with small groups, using Lexia, using other resources that we have available that are anchored in the science of reading to really bring those students closer to grade level. Seventh grade, similar to sixth, not much change here, a 2-point drop from 40 to 38, but again, not as much as we saw in the early learning space in first and second grade, but we do see something different here with eighth grade. It is, again, a much more significant decline overall. This hinders our ability to meet those high school targets that we just talked about a couple of weeks ago. In 6 months, these students show up as freshmen. If we're not able to fix this and close these gaps, that then makes it much harder in the 9 to 12 space to keep them on track for TSI, for college readiness, for associate degrees, dual credit, all of those things that we're committing to for our students. The next slide is high school data. This is not an actual GPM, but again, we want to be transparent as much as we can through the process, so we're always going to add a few extra things in there to help the community see sort of the whole story. Line graph here on the top left breaks down English 1, 2, 3, and 4. Generally, that is a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, but we know some students aren't always sort of aligned with their grade level, so you may have upperclassmen still in an English 2 or English 3 sort of testing situation. Well, what we notice with our English 1 data is actually really promising. The blue here is below the red, which means we got better. So we actually increased achievement at the English 1 rate from beginning of year to middle of year. That's what we want to be seeing across the board, but we are really pleased that we're seeing that with our English 1 students, again, predominantly freshmen, and we just had a whole conversation with you about the importance of being on track as a freshman. You also see campus data, again, we'll call out Juarez Lincoln here, which shows growth from beginning of year to middle of year. This is the second presentation in a row where we've been able to shout out the Huskies for work that they are doing to really advance opportunities and outcomes for students at that high school. Now, as we wrap up this conversation, what we want to try to do is tie together something that we really reflected on as we looked at the data, that we are working to address at the system level, and that is coherence. We've got to make sure that what is in the hands of teachers and what students are experiencing every day in the materials, to the instructional strategies that teachers are using in the classroom, to the coaching and feedback that they're receiving from their campus leaders, all aligns. And to spoil the next 3 slides, it's not all aligning right now, and that's clear in what we're seeing. The first thing we shared with you in the state of the district, which was looking at whether teachers are using the instructional materials that we've asked them to use. And we said then and would say now, as Annette just said, our teachers are working very hard and they are using the things that they have at their disposal. We see that a little higher in math, not surprising because we have a new curriculum there. We also see it incredibly high in reading, but it's important to remember that that's still the same old reading curriculum that we've had, which in the next conversation we're going to unpack a little bit more to say it's not actually the highest quality or most aligned to the research or science base right now. Which leads to this next reality, which we also showed in the state of the district. Again, if you look on the right-hand side of the slide at RLA classrooms, at best, we're getting into the upper 50% of our classrooms at the elementary level. You see that in the red bars, using research-based instructional strategies. That's why Ms. Lozano laid out, we're bringing in intensive training on RBs, that's what you'll hear us call it sometimes, research-based instructional strategies, for our teachers and our campus leaders. Because having the right materials is one part, but it's not the whole part. What the teacher is doing with the instruction matters immensely. And that leads to the final piece of coherence here for our conversation tonight, which is how teachers are receiving feedback and coaching from their campus leaders. And if that is really pushing them to think about the growth that we need to have across the board. A couple things going on in this slide. Each dot represents a campus. So all of those blue dots are a school. The 3-digit numbers on top of the dots are their campus code. So each number represents a campus, and every principal could identify sort of where they are. The horizontal axis here, sort of going left to right at the bottom, are the average scores in our T-test observation system so far this school year. There's a couple of things to note about that. These are the average scores that have been counted for teachers thus far. Not every time a principal has gone in the classroom. There are specific milestones that principals meet in the process. And so you see here, all of our dots fit between roughly 3 to over 4. This is a 1 to 5 scale. Anything 3 or higher is considered proficient. Remember, a proficient teacher can grow a student by at least 1 academic school year. Like you can take them from start of 5th grade to end of 5th grade in the 5th grade year. We just showed you a bunch of data that isn't doing that right now for our students. If you're getting into the 4+ range, that's an accomplished or distinguished teacher that has the ability to grow students by more than one academic year. So we're actually catching up and making ground. Well, what you see in this slide is all but a few of the dots are below that big, thick black line across the middle. That big, thick black line is still our average growth, 50th percentile. You're meeting the mark to maintain space. So this is what we have to, and we've started with principals, to make sure that, yes, we are supporting teachers to meet the expectation of high-quality instruction, but we're also having really grounded and honest conversations about when that's happening and when it's not, and are able to provide teachers that feedback and support to improve. The other part of this is it's not just about the observation that ultimately determines a teacher's evaluation score. I just said that like it's a fact, but what we're learning is that hasn't always been the case in La Jolla ISD. This is a comprehensive system where it looks at observation data, it looks at student growth data. There are other two, domain 1 and 4 in T-TEST, look at overall professional sort of qualities and characteristics of a teacher. All of that goes into how we ultimately evaluate and rate our educators. We are in the process. We've actually spent the last 5 months in intensive training on T-TEST with Region 1. We've got one more session to go with our principals. Our human capital team is working closely with our principals to help make sure that this is a robust system, because at the end of the day, it is about teacher support and helping them to grow and improve in their practice so we have the student growth that we require. So to wrap us up here, 4 big takeaways that we got from this data and where we are. The first is just a total admission and acknowledgement that this is unacceptable regression. This is not something that we certainly can continue to see or expect for our students, because again, we've set really ambitious targets for where we want to be with student outcomes, and that's the journey that we're committed to being on. I'm going to go clockwise around this slide as we talk about this. The second thing, to go back to what Ms. Lozano said, again, our teachers are using what they have. We've got to give them better things. And we're about to talk about that in our next presentation. But while giving them better things, we also have to help them do more high-quality research-based work with that better instructional material set. So we've got to do more training, more support for teachers and for leaders. A lot of folks, not just in La Jolla, but across the country, have been teaching kids to read for a long time the wrong way. And it is really hard to deprogram a teacher from those practices and actually replace that with what the scientific evidence says is effective. So that's our quality of Tier 1 instruction work. And in the bottom right, what we have to do with campus leaders, so that when they're sitting with the teacher planning or they're in a classroom doing that observation, they're really rooted in what best practices and evidence shows and are giving teachers that authentic feedback. So to the bottom left, when we look at our teacher evaluation and rating data, we actually see more connection and alignment and coherence in how we're saying we're delivering lessons and instruction and how our students are actually doing. All of that is underway. We have more work to do, but that's the work ahead. The other reality here, to be frank with the board and with the community, this doesn't happen quickly. This is system building work. Sometimes it's tearing down parts of broken systems and rebuilding new aspects of it, increasing capacity and giving new knowledge and skills to our educators and our leaders. This is a years-long progress and process. So yes, you should expect that we continue to see different outcomes early on and moving forward, but we should also recognize that this is a journey that we have to be on for quite some time. So with that, we're happy to take questions.
Members of the board, do we have any questions for our presenters?
I have a question. In the middle school space, you mentioned that you'll be adjusting some of the scheduling for the students. My questions are, when you say you're adjusting the scheduling, I'm assuming that's meaning you're going to be increasing some targeted intervention for these students. And which students? Is that 6th, 7th, and 8th? And another question is, how is that going to affect, I guess, where does that time come from? Is that coming from electives? Where is that coming from?
Thank you for letting us clarify this, because I clearly didn't express this really well. We're not changing the student schedule. We're changing how the time within the existing schedule is being used. So I'm not going to be pulled out of one class, or I'm not going to now have a different daily schedule. But when I'm in my classroom with my reading teacher, what we're asking the reading teacher to do in that time is going to be a bit more evidence-based and higher impact. And for students who haven't been successful on STAR in the past, they generally have a period which we call Quest, which they're receiving additional supports. We're also focusing more on making sure they're getting some foundational literacy supports in that Quest time. But the student's day is still going to be the same.
Okay. And then is there any sort of after-school tutoring that is being mandated or implemented?
Absolutely. Schools are doing that already, and part of what we're supporting campuses with is expanding that even more to give students more time, or students who haven't been in tutoring, to bring them in.
Okay, and when you say expand it in the sense of, because I think from what I've heard that this sort of tutoring after school is only, is it a 2-day type of implementing on only certain days? Just
Yeah, so some campuses have certain schedules, so like they may have a content on certain days and those rotate. Part of what this data shows is we need more of that, and part of our conversations with principals is, okay, how do you get 3 or 4 days in your schedule for students to get tutoring and literacy?
Right, and I guess I kind of am framing this trying to see how much time is being, of course, I know the students need it, and if it's a high quality time, that's, preferred. But if we're increasing the days of after-school tutoring, how does that affect after-school activities for the students, for orchestra, choir, band, athletics?
Yeah, and in the middle school space, and I know you know this space pretty well, but one that happens a bit differently at elementary and middle than it does at high. But some campuses who are doing this really well will schedule in tutoring time sort of right after the day. If they're doing a supper program, they'll happen, and then students are being released into whatever other extracurricular opportunity that has. The other thing we will say is all of those extracurricular opportunities, whether it's athletics, arts, whatever it may be, those are super critical in the student's development and interest as well. Like, we're not trying to remove those opportunities for students. We are trying to find the best balance to make sure that their academic needs are being met at the same time that their interest areas are being served.
Right, okay, so then it's not to where you're saying that, okay, the student has to be in school, in tutoring after school for so many hours, and we won't share them with the other.
Yeah, that's right. All of this is a balance of sharing the time.
Great, perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Little.
I want to clarify that we're using the same assessment for beginning of year and middle of year data.
Yeah, all of this was the MAP data, so that is the same assessment suite. But again, the questions students are seeing will be a bit different depending upon where they are. I showed you in the first MAP presentation this sort of zigzag red and green chart. So the first question I get is going to be on grade level question. If I'm a first grader, I'm getting a first grade question. If I get that right, the questions get a little harder. If I get that wrong, the questions get a little easier, ultimately landing me in a place where my teacher can know, here's what I have to do for that student to grow.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Dr. Little, can we go back to the slide regarding instructional evidence observed? And can we just explain for the community what the difference is between research-based instruction, universal design, and content-based language?
Absolutely. So again, looking at the reading data here, research-based instructional strategies are things that teachers are doing with students to engage them in the content to advance that learning. So there are examples about this on how you do student responses. So if you ask a student a question, what you will most often see in a classroom, a teacher puts a question out there, they wait for a student to answer, student may or may not get it right, and teacher moves on. Like, that's happened for years in classrooms. A research-based instructional strategy would say you put the question out there, you have a system set up for students to work together. So Annette and I are actually going to talk through that question. We're going to work through it, and we have some peer accountability, or we're doing that at a table or a small group. The teacher is going throughout the room to make sure every student is ultimately getting the question right, because what we don't want to do is submit the wrong answer in students, and therefore they carry that misconception forward. So that sort of questioning technique is one little example of what that can look like. But there's a whole host of things that we'll be training teachers and leaders on to really bring that instruction to life, and to make sure that we know where students are in their learning and we're responding to that in the moment. Middle one is universal design for learning. This is really about creating a classroom space for every type of student. So if I'm a student with special needs in a classroom getting inclusion services, that classroom has to work for me. just like it has to work for an emergent bilingual student. So what strategies is the teacher using to make sure, whether it's language or actual content or skills, make that classroom a successful space for every type of student, whether or not I'm on grade level or whether or not I belong to any other student group. And then content-based language instruction, we honestly have a long way to go here. Some of you went out to schools and classrooms as part of School Board Appreciation Month. We did visits. Superintendent and I were with part of the team earlier this week doing visits. And we've got really quiet classrooms overall. That's not actually ideal. Like, you want students engaging in rich discussion with each other, with their teacher. You want them grappling with academic vocabulary and language, sort of pushing their thinking. And we're generally not there yet. So content-based language instruction is really building out strategies for teachers to use to bring that dialogue to life. Whether it's a pre-K classroom or a senior English seminar, it doesn't matter. Like, you gotta have a lot of conversation. So that's really what that's looking at. And again, it doesn't matter if that's a dual language context and we're doing it in Spanish and going back and forth between Spanish and English, or in a monolingual classroom where it's English only.
Thank you.
Members of the board, those are good questions. Thank you, Dr. Little and you, Nanette, for this portion of agenda item 6. Now we're going to move on to agenda item 6.4. Unless you have something to add, Dr.
I do.
Sorensen?
Can I add one thing? Dr. Little, can you go back to the slide with the 4 takeaways? So I also want to lift up the lower left corner around teacher evaluation and coaching and feedback. Has to align to student outcomes. I think it's really important for us to also not have a knee-jerk reaction around teacher evaluation and really lean into this aspect around coaching and feedback. It is incredibly important for our teachers to hear that the purpose, ultimately, of T-tests, normally people hear is evaluation. We have to make a dramatic shift in our system around T-tests being around coaching and feedback. This is a growth tool. This is a tool that we have to embrace as a system. I talk sometimes about systemic shifts. And this is a tool that we should be using as a system that our principals, our assistant principals, that we've been training with them the entire year, half-day principal meetings every month around using this tool as a coaching tool in order to develop the capacity of our teachers to do really great instruction. It is not something to be used punitively. It is something to give feedback. It is something to use as a coaching tool for conversations to grow our educators so that it translates into student outcomes and student achievement. And so I really appreciate the second sentence, because sometimes we read the bold, right? And we do a disservice to our teachers and our students if we inflate observation data, because what happens at the end of that road is that our teachers will get a particular score on T-tests. But then with TIA, the other side of that is the student achievement data won't be there. And then earning TIA will become a non-reality. And we want our teachers to earn the teacher incentive allotment. I mean, that's compensation for their really hard work. And so we want T-tests to be viewed as a coaching tool throughout the year in partnership, teacher, principal, teacher, assistant principal, in order to not only impact our students and their achievement, but also to help our teachers grow our students so that there is that compensation reward at the end of the journey that is mutually beneficial both for our students and our educators. So I really wanted to lift that up as well as part of the conversation as we talk about this systemic change of really leaning into T-tests as a coaching tool and not just an evaluation instrument.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Members of the board, any questions? Seeing that we have none, we'll go ahead and move on to 6.4, the Bluebonnet Leadership Adoption. Dr. Little?
Still us.
Annette?
All right, so we're going to start, and we really laid this out in the prior discussion, but this presentation is really about our process and our sort of guardrails around adopting a new high-quality instructional material for reading. Part of what we wanted to do on this first slide is just lay out some big reasons why we need to do that. You just saw data, which points to the need to do that, certainly in supporting our students. But there's a couple other things. One, we've got to make sure that what we have in place is really rooted in the science of teaching reading, and our current adoption is not as strong in that area as it needs to be. The other reality here is the state goes through a process where they vet curriculum and instructional materials. It's a very rigorous process. It takes quite a bit of time for a curriculum vendor to go through that. And then the state releases a list of approved and vetted items. That's called IMRA approved, Instructional Materials Review and Adoption Process is what that stands for. And what we're currently using in the district is not on that list, which means it is not meeting all of those quality criteria. So again, all of those coming together, we need to respond to. And as a reminder, Ms. Lozano presented this a few months ago. But we got to ensure that what we are doing in our classrooms really responds to all aspects of what it means to become a skilled reader. Scarborough's rope here breaks that down into the different components. The blues and greens are really those foundational elements of knowing what letter symbols and sounds look like and how they relate to each other, being able to build and construct words from that or dissect a word and decode it to get its meaning. And then higher level things in the reds and oranges of the rope, ultimately leading to comprehension or reasoning or being able to connect multiple pieces of text together. All of those fibers really have to come together for a student to be a skilled reader and ultimately be able to access grade level text or college level text, whatever that may be. And so our instructional materials are really key in how we're helping teachers prepare students for that. So for next year, we have two options that we are considering based on, again, that rigorous review process that the state has laid out. The first on the left here, called Bluebonnet Learning, this is actually the state's published curriculum at this point. So Texas, for the first time, is actually producing its own instructional materials. And they're doing that under this brand of Bluebonnet Learning. Now, in this case, it gets a little tricky and interesting because what the state did on the reading side is they purchased the content from Amplify Texas, which you see on the right-hand side of the slide. And then they made Texas-specific adjustments to that, which we'll talk through sort of as we go. But the other thing to note here is right now, for next school year, the Bluebonnet Learning Suite is available for K-5 English. It's not yet available for all of K-5 Spanish. So we will have to adopt a mix of both of these resources next year, and we'll talk about that in more detail in a second, to make sure that we're covering the needs of our monolingual classrooms and the needs of our dual language classrooms. So I mentioned that the state goes through this process to review and approve instructional materials. Again, Bluebonnet is approved for K-5. English, phonics, and reading, so we can use that sort of for everything we need in the reading context. Amplify right now is only approved for K2 Spanish phonics. But again, Bluebonnet doesn't have a full Spanish suite, so for at least a year, we'll have to put a puzzle together in a mix of the two. You see OER by Bluebonnet Learning Reading Language Arts. OER stands for Open Education Resource. That means that the state technically, I would say technically with an asterisk in italics, puts this out for free. That means you can go online and you can see PDFs of each lesson. That's all it means. It doesn't come in a nice pretty bound book. It doesn't come with any professional learning for teachers. It doesn't come with all the consumables that are needed, but it is out there for anybody to access, which is why it's designated as the open education resource for the state. What we're currently using, you see at the bottom, again, is not on that approved list, so we are planning to make this transition. This next slide is helping us understand how the state is incentivizing districts to move to these adoptions, where Texas wants to see as many districts as possible using Bluebonnet Learning. The first row here is that Bluebonnet Learning K-5 reading. Then you see Amplify K2 Spanish, or K5 Spanish, sorry. Then we've got Amplify in English, and then at the very bottom, you've got the middle school option for Amplify 6-8. That second column, instructional materials and technology allotment, is funding that every district gets. So this is a set amount. It could change each legislative session, but it's a set amount of money that districts receive to really help them purchase instructional materials. There's wide latitude in what districts can use that money for. We're going to get that no matter what. The next two columns, though, are incentive funding that the state is providing if you adopt one of the resources off of that list that they're encouraging districts to use. So if we move forward with Bluebonnet K5 English, we would get $40 extra per student to help implement that resource. The caveat here is we don't get $40 per student per content. So we're not going to get $40 for reading and $40 for math. We're just going to get $40 one time. So every first grader will generate $40 each, and we then have to use that to support our curricular work. We also can get the $40 for the K2 part of Spanish that has been approved for Amplify. So because that's on that IMRA list, that is available. And remember, I talked about Bluebonnet being the open education resource where you can go online and get those PDFs. Because the state knows that teachers like to have everything bound and students need a book, they will throw in another $20 per student to help you print those things. All right, so that's sort of how this puzzle comes together. But it's not just for us about literacy. We also will be making a transition in math. I want to say that super carefully. We are not really changing the curriculum in math next year. Just like I said earlier, Bluebonnet purchased Amplify on the reading side and put some new covers and Texas-specific things in there. They did the same thing with Eureka and with Carnegie. So the curriculum that our teachers are using right now, K5 and 6-8, that's going to look and feel almost identical next year. It's just going to have pretty new pictures on it and some very specific Texas resources. All of this covers 100% of the Texas standards. So we are ensuring that our students in our classrooms are learning the specific state standards that Texas has adopted and required for each grade level. Even with Amplify Spanish, that is true. So we will start to get to a place where we got a unified suite of high quality instructional materials on the reading and math side. The other thing to note, though, as we have this conversation and we want to be clear with the public and the community about this, is there's been a lot of news about Bluebonnet's adoption and publishing in the state of Texas. We're showing you just 4 articles, and you will see that some of these are national pieces. Texas has gotten a lot of media attention over the last 6 to 12 months in particular because Bluebonnet Learning incorporates religious text. Ms. Lozano is actually going to take us through the rest of this presentation where we start to unpack and dissect what that means. It's not showing up as much as these news stories would make it seem to be the case, but this is something that the community has to be aware of. With Bluebonnet Learning, if you agree to it, and we'll talk about what that means in a second, like your child will be reading passages from the Bible as part of this curriculum. So that is what we want to really spend the next few slides talking through to help show what that looks like, how often that shows up in the course of a grade level and content, and then we'll wrap up with sort of what's coming next for us.
So as Dr. Little said, Texas Bluebonnet Learning Curriculum is the state curriculum for language arts and also for math. Previously for language arts, it was Amplify. However, the state purchased it in order to make some Texas-specific modifications to it. They didn't do it in the foundational skills. However, they did do it in the reading portion with the content. What does that look like? What does that mean for our students? Well, there are some religious texts incorporated within the content of our units that our students would be exposed to. Why are we doing this? Why is the state doing this? Because they want to set cultural and historical context within the stories for the students. We're also thinking about in the future when students are reading literature in their secondary spaces, they need to have this background context in order to understand some of that Western literature that our students are going to be exposed to. So it is not intended in any way to influence any religious beliefs. The lessons or texts that students would be exposed to are merely content and text, and they're age appropriate for students within the grade levels. This is an example of how religious texts are incorporated into our reading curriculum of Bluebonnet Learning. You see a side-by-side comparison. They look almost identical. This is a preface of a lesson for a first grade student in Unit 9. Bluebonnet curriculum has a prodigal son. Amplified Texas has the tale of Peter Rabbit. So there are two different texts being used, but I want you to pay close attention to the boxes, the yellow boxes. If we look closely, we see that the reading skills that are being taught are exactly the same. Our language skills are the same. Our writing techniques are the same. So the content, the techniques that we're teaching our students are what they need to be on grade level. It is just the text is being used to teach these techniques with that differs. Here we have a table that shows how many of these units and lessons actually incorporate or make any reference to religious texts. In kinder, we do have 4 units, and within those units, there's 4 lessons. 1 unit, 1 lesson. First grade, we only have 1 unit with 1 particular lesson. Second grade, we have 3 units, and with 4 lessons. Third grade, 1 unit, 1 lesson. Fourth grade, 1 unit, 1 lesson. Fifth grade, 2 units, 2 lessons. So to get an overall idea of what does this look like throughout the whole school year, we can say that a unit within a grade level, particular grade level, is about 10 lessons. How many units do we have within the grade level? We have anywhere between 10 to 12. So on average, we have about 100 lessons that a first grader would be exposed to. And if we look at our table, out of those 100 lessons, maybe 1 lesson might have some religious text. Okay? Do we have any questions on that?
Board members, any questions?
No.
Okay. Another component of our Bluebonnet Learning curriculum is the transparency of what our students will be learning in the classrooms. So Bluebonnet Learning curriculum provides these parent letters to keep our parents informed of what their students will be learning, not just what skills they're going to be learning, but what texts their students are going to be exposed to. So the transparency is here for us to communicate that with parents through teacher communication, campus communication, our parent communicator as a district, in order to ensure that parents are aware of what their students are going to be exposed to as they go through the different units in their reading curriculum. Now here we have side-by-side English language arts and Spanish language arts. So we know that Bluebonnet Learning curriculum for reading doesn't exist yet in Spanish. However, at La Jolla, our goal is to ensure that our emerging bilingual students are biliterate and bicultural at the end of their educational career with us. And how do we do that? Well, just how we want to ensure that our English dominant students have the best high quality instructional materials, we also need to do the same for emergent bilingual students. That means that we have to look at curriculum that is research-based and grounded in the science of reading. This is why we're looking at our Amplify. So we know that our dual language teachers are very capable and confident in achieving this goal. Yes, it's going to require work and dedication and commitment, but as a district, we stand behind our dual language program, providing extensive professional development, support, and also compensation for their additional work that they have to do to ensure that our students are biliterate and bicultural. And here we do have our timeline of what this looks like as we are making our transition into our new reading curriculum adoption. Currently, La Jolla ISD is a recipient of a Strong Foundations Planning Grant for Literacy from TEA. What does that mean? That this grant is helping us build a literacy framework that is going to be grounded in the science of reading to ensure that our students are reading on grade level. What is this commitment that we have? We have 2 different committees. We have the district a leadership committee, and we also have a campus-based committee that's going to be going through classroom observations. They're going to be discussing, looking at data, looking at research-based practices. They're going to actually receive professional development in research-based instructional strategies. We are already starting that work. Come February, we're exploring, we've been having the conversations about what these materials look like. Today was our first official meeting of discussion of the possible curriculum adoptions. Next, we move into our classrooms, into our communities. We want to be open and transparent about the direction that we're taking our district in when it comes to our literacy goals. Then come March, we're going to continue with our presentations of hands-on. We want teachers to actually have those materials in their hands and to give us that feedback. At the end of it, we're going to come, take all that data that we gathered, input, and decide and present to you what's going to be our best option as a district. Come April, we have to definitely look at our master schedule when it comes to elementary. The commitment that's going to be behind our new reading adoption is going to be crucial, because when we're talking about teaching kids how to read in an explicit, systematic manner, there is a time commitment in order to implement with fidelity. And then come May, we start training all the different stakeholders with our reading literacy framework, with the RBs, and our new curriculum. So we have a journey.
Thank you. Any questions, board comments?
That was a very informative presentation y'all both put together, so thank you for that. That was a lot of things to think about. Members of the board, do you have any questions for the presenters?
I did hear that we were going to be getting or going through like the community to get feedback on this type of curriculum. Can you tell me a little bit more about what we're thinking that's going to look like?
Absolutely. We'll be having community sessions to talk to them about our need as a district when it comes to reading. Why is it that we're even considering a different reading adoption? So we have to start with the why. We have to let our community know the need that we have in literacy. Once we establish that need and give them the why, we can introduce the different options that we have. So this will be through community meetings.
Dr. Sorensen, do you have anything to add to this presentation?
The only thing that I would add is that, first and foremost, I think the data is really clear, not just the MAP data, though. I want to go back to our STAR data. When we talked about our quality seats analysis, what we know is that only about 40% of our students are reading at grade level across the district. And so there is a call to action for all of us to really do something dramatically different in terms of literacy. And then we also know what the trajectory looks like as our kids get into middle school and high school. And so if we get it right in the K-5 space, that changes trajectories for children. So I think, doing this work in the pre-K to 5 space is essential. And so we've already started doing really essential work in pre-K with the adoption of creative curriculum led by Ms. Mayra Ramos sitting in the audience. And so I think we only have really great work to build upon. The other thing that I really do want to note that I don't think that there's enough conversation about, I sent some data to the team this week, is the NAEP data, which is, the national conversation around recovery from learning loss. And there is a really robust conversation happening right now around how our nation is really recovering from learning loss. And we are not, as a nation, doing well in recovering both in literacy and math. And I don't mean we as in La Jolla, I mean the nation is not doing well in terms of recovering. And there are bright spots across the nation that are doing better than other spaces. And those bright spots are places and spaces that they either returned very quickly after the closures, and or where they did intensive work on tutoring. And those are the bright spots in a report that was just, in a research brief that was just done by Harvard. Unfortunately, La Jolla did not do either of those. And so La Jolla was closed as a district for almost 2 years. Children were out of school here in La Jolla ISD for almost 2 years. We had that conversation today. And so we are fighting an uphill battle in terms of how long our students were without direct in-classroom instruction. And from our ESSER review last year, we know that there was not a lot of funding put towards direct, intense tutoring efforts. While there was some, I'm not saying that there was none, the direct funding put towards intense tutoring efforts wasn't there. And so those places across the country where there are bright recovery spots, unfortunately didn't happen here. And so we have a long climb to go. We have the right plan. I'm very excited about the plan that we have. We have the right people. We have incredibly hardworking educators who are dedicated to doing the right work. So I'm very excited about the journey that we have ahead of us. But I do want to acknowledge that this is, what do I keep calling it? Soil tilling work that we have to do. But it is what we will do as we commit to educational excellence being the right of every single student in La Jolla ISD.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Seeing that we have no further questions. Oh, you do?
Yes,
Go
I
ahead.
do have another question. Mrs. Sano and Dr. Little, thank you so much for giving us the example of what the differences are based on the different curriculums. I do see that the Blue Bonnet curriculum mentions that we're incorporating religious texts. So just to clarify, is the Bible the only book that's being referenced, or there are other religious books that are being used for the literacy teaching?
Some of the religious text comes from Hebrew scriptures, from our Jewish Tanakh. We can also maybe see our students being exposed to other old civilization religions, such as the Mayan, the deities, ancient Greece. So it's not just the Bible. Religious texts that our students will be exposed to.
Thank you for clarifying.
Great question. So seeing that we have no further questions for our presenters, thank you very much. That was a great presentation to both of you. Our last item on the agenda is agenda item number 7. We're going to ask Dr. Barrera to make her way up to the podium, which she's already done, and who serves as our TEA conservator. So she will be discussing our board self-assessment. Diana?
Good evening, President Alvarez, Superintendent Sorensen, members of the board, members of the team, and the community. I'm here before you this evening to guide you and lead you through your board self-assessment. This is our second one. If you recall, the first one, we didn't have a whole lot of things that we could score. It's different today. We should be moving towards the right in this progress tracker. I want to remind everybody, the community, the board, and the team here that we are expecting this intervention to be about a 5-year intervention. So we know that it's going to take time to implement LSG at the highest levels. So I don't want anyone to think, oh, we're not doing well. We are making progress, which is what we expect from everybody. And so with that in mind, I want to call your attention to your implementation integrity instrument. So if you'll start at the very beginning, under teamwork, vision and goals, the Texas Framework of Vision and Goals. Under that one, it says the board has adopted student outcome goals. Where do you see yourself as a board? I would say start at the left and move to the right.
Diana, are we supposed to respond where we see ourselves?
Yes, for you, you all to respond. Yes, where do you see yourselves? What score? Are you at preparing to focus? Are you at does not meet focus?
I'd say at least meet focus.
Which one?
Meet focus.
Meets focus. So let's see, all board members, superintendent agree that the goals challenge the organization, require adult behavior change, and are influenceable? Yes. I agree. So is everybody good with meets focus on that one?
Yes.
Huge growth on that one. Let's go to the second one. Vision and goals 2. The board has adopted goal progress measures aligned to each student outcome goal. And I'd like to just remind the board that we have not identified 5-year goals with our GPMs on some of them because we still need to get some baseline data.
I think we're at preparing to focus for that.
I would agree with that, right. And the only reason that you're not at approaches is because of that component. But we're taking our time and that's appropriate. So does everybody agree that we're at preparing to focus?
I would say yes.
Yes.
Vision and goals 3. The board has adopted constraints. Where do you see yourself? Where will you score yourself with this one?
Preparing to, I think we're,
Preparing to focus.
Have we adopted it?
We didn't adopt them yet.
no, we need to
We
read.
didn't adopt them yet.
What's that?
We didn't adopt them yet.
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
But like the process.
Okay.
We've discussed that.
So preparing to focus.
So what would that mean?
Preparing
Preparing
to
to focus.
focus.
Does not meet.
Does not meet.
We did not
We do
adopt
not
them yet,
meet
so we're
yet.
still at does not meet focus.
We
And
haven't
that's
adopted
okay.
yet.
But we have them.
We've
chatted
discussed
about
them,
Yeah, we,
yeah.
We're getting
And
it.
if you recall, we're waiting on a survey and another large report to give us more data.
special education, right?
Okay. So we are at a 0 with that one. So we stayed the same. That's the only one we've stayed the same at. Vision goals 4. The board has adopted superintendent constraint progress measures and CPMs. That should be easy.
We're almost there.
We're,
I promise.
we're still at a 0, but yes, we're almost
Yeah,
there.
we're zero.
And I need to add that I appreciate the superintendent really taking her time and making sure she has all the data to be able to write these, because she wants them to be really, really measurable and appropriate. So that's okay. We're moving on to progress and accountability 1. The board invests at least half of its time to improving student outcomes.
Oh, boy.
Focus. Preparing.
What do y'all think?
These also, these also,
Where are we, Mr.
we're also talking about constraints of superintendent. We don't have those.
Yeah.
We're at the first one.
So we have been tracking our times. We just started. You're going to approve the first one today. But we don't have an average of all of those. So we just started doing that, but we are doing that.
What do you think, preparing?
So I would say definitely preparing to focus. We are there.
We're preparing.
Huh?
Yeah,
Don't you think preparing?
I think we're preparing.
Well, we don't have the
Oh, it's not
superintendent
superintendent
constraints, so it
constraints, so
would
we're
be.
still, does not meet focus.
Does not meet focus.
Until we
Because we're
get
missing
that
the
done, we can
constraints.
jump up to maybe approach. But
Oh, you know what? You're right. I went straight to 1 because I thought for sure, you're right. So we are still, that does not meet focus.
Still got a big time.
Okay. Progress and accountability 2. The board evaluates, but does not interfere with progress toward improving student outcomes. Where are we with progress and accountability 2?
Are we
we voted on a self-evaluation?
We did the self one. We haven't done it yet.
Mm-mm.
So
I don't think
we're
we did
0.
that, though.
Isn't this it?
We haven't voted on it.
Does not meet focus.
Does not meet focus.
And why would you say that,
Because
Ms.
the
Chavez? I
last-
think you're right.
The last item, we have not approved a self-evaluation.
What was that? The last one that we've not voted to
The
approve
implementation
superintendents?
plan.
Yes, yes. And we have not done the superintendent evaluation as well. So are we all in agreement that we're still at a 0 with that one?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to systems and processes. The board operates in a way that allows the superintendent to accomplish the vision. Remember, you did receive a monitoring report already.
I would say approaches.
Preparing to focus.
But, number 1, for student outcomes, there's that constraint.
It says
Or, yeah.
We're at approaches, right?
Approaches?
Why would you say approaches?
We adopted the
Can
calendar.
we meet all the requirements for preparing to focus? That does say the student outcomes or the GPM constraints. So I think at least we've got all of those covered.
Right?
And then 75% are on consent. And we have adopted a monitoring calendar.
Oh, approaches focus.
So what was that, Dr. Sorensen? You're talking about the agenda portion, right? So what was your comment on that?
I just said that eligible items were placed on the consent agenda, and more than 75% of items were voted using consent.
Do we have a record of that?
And what would you say about that?
I
Would you
would say
agree?
that's accurate.
Yeah, no, I agree. So we're saying that approaches. Does anyone have anything other than approaches? So we all
No.
agree that one would be approaches. That's really good. Move on to advocacy and engagement. And actually, board, we're going to skip this one because this is not part of your exit criteria. This component is not part of it. If you want to look at it, we're able to do that, but the agency doesn't need us to report on this one.
On advocacy and engagement?
What was that?
On advocacy and engagement?
On advocacy and engagement, yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Actually seems like one of the best ones. I mean, we do all these stakeholder meetings. Why don't you give us a good one, Deanna?
Well, let's do it.
We're at
Let's do it.
Why don't you not worry about what TEA says? Let's-
We'll go above and beyond, just like we always do.
I
So
mean, the one that we're
let's do
doing
it.
really good.
Advocacy and engagement. Where
You were
are
like Debbie Downer, like, wah, wah, wah.
we? So where are we on that one? Let's do it. I'm good with that.
Yeah. Well, I thought meets
Thank you
focus
for
on that
that,
one.
Mr. Alvarez.
Meets focus.
Yeah, I thought meets focus. I mean, that's my personal opinion. I mean, I think staff and
So-
everyone has done a pretty good job of,
The thing with this advocacy and engagement, this is why it's, the issue with this, it's very hard for boards to reach this, because this is not what they do.
exactly.
This is, you need to have community engagement sessions where you are engaging with the community, you're leading, you're telling the community about goals, goal progress measures, the constraints, how we operate. And so that's the other piece that makes this one very, very difficult to achieve.
I think we've done an exceptional job. I mean, that's what
Yeah,
so it
we've been
puts us
participating
apart
in
from
the
everybody else. I
engagement
think I've
strategy.
referenced that at every board meeting, that I'm very proud
Oh,
of the
yes.
meetings that we've had with the community and stakeholders regarding, so.
But this is aside from board, I'm
No, I
giving
know.
you pushback just to
No, I
let
know.
you know what this
No, I
means.
know.
This is two-way engagement with the community.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're at board meetings, the community can't engage with you. There's not a two-way communication. So it's another meeting outside of here where you are able to speak with community directly. So. I think we would still be at a 0 with this one, guys. Is there any challenges to the 0?
No, because there's no two-way, like you mentioned, the
Yes.
two-way communication.
Right. And right now, we're not going to worry about this. We'll do this later. But again, this is the board engaging with the community in two-way communication, not that, the team is doing a fabulous job of it. They absolutely, if we were scoring them, they'd already be at master's focus. So, okay. The final one is synergy and teamwork. The board works collaboratively with the superintendent to lead towards a vision.
So the statutorily required trainings, we're pretty much doing a lot of trainings, but I'm not sure if it's.
Yes, there's one that you do have to do that to complete that process.
Okay.
However, the preparing to focus section does say that we would have to meet at least every 2 years. So I don't know if that modifies already what we're doing, or if we have to wait
because
till.
we've only been here a year.
Right, right. So I would say if we have plans to do that, but have we done that? No. So you're correct with that one. So that
Preparing to focus.
preparing to focus.
Good catch.
Okay.
But I would say, with the exception of that, this is an exceptionally great team in terms of teamwork and synergy. Just want to say that out loud.
Oh, no, absolutely. No, the progress that this board has made has been incredible, just incredible. When I saw that video earlier, the work that this entire district has done with the support and guidance of the board and the superintendent, unprecedented, just a lot. So I'm really proud of the progress that the board has made. They have been a model board already, being so young, but I'm very proud every time I sit out here or watch from home how you guys comport yourself and the work that you're doing to support student outcomes with all of your decisions. So we improved in 1, 2, 3, 4 areas. That is awesome. So thank you. And last time I talked a lot more, this time I needed you to do that. And eventually, by the time I leave as your coach and conservator, you will be leading this on your own. So thank you, board. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Any questions for Dr. Barrera? Well, what I appreciate is the fact that you allow us to do this in an open meeting, and so the folks understand the transparency, and we identify the areas that we need to focus on. So I appreciate that.
Exactly. And so that the staff knows also you're learning too, and you're being assessed also. You're assessing yourselves. So Dr. Sorensen mentioned earlier, she really wanted to point that out, that we should see any assessment as feedback, right? It's a good thing. The only way that we can improve is if we have appropriate feedback as to where we are. So thank you for this honest feedback this evening on this instrument.
Secretary Pena, you have a question?
No, I was just going to say thank you for keeping us accountable, because it's important for us to reflect that to the community as well.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Barrera. All right, that finishes all our presentations for this evening. Our next item on the agenda is agenda item number 8, is our consent agenda item. Do I have a motion?
President Alvarez, I do move that we table item 8.1 to a later date, just to allow for further review on that.
Okay. Okay, perfect. So with the correction that was made by Secretary Pena, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items with the exception of 8.1?
Yes, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to go into closed session. It is executive session, I should say. It is 8:19 p.m. We are back from closed session. It is 9:55 p.m. Okay, next item on the agenda, agenda item number 11.1, approval of establishment of the La Jolla ISD School Health Advisory Council for 2024-2025. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve item 11.1.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item is 11.2, approval of Texas Evaluation and Support Systems. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve item 11.2.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The following item is item 11.3, approval of policy update 124. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve item 11.3.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item is item number 11.4, consider request for additional day school year waiver for missed instructional time due to inclement weather. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve item 11.4.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item is item number 11.5, consideration and adoption of resolution approving contingent fee legal services contract, including findings needed for submission of contingent fee legal services agreement and request for expedited review by the Texas Attorney General. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve item 11.5.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item is 11.6, consideration adoption of contingent fee legal services agreement with Thompson and Horton, Elon, Bonin, BC, and Ohanan, Demerith, and Castillo. Do I have a motion?
I move
I move to
to
approve.
approve item 11.6.
Okay, I need one person to make a motion. Who's making the motion?
I move to approve.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, next item on the agenda is 11.7, consider action regarding level 3 DGBA grievance filed by Ms. Laura Rodriguez. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve 11.7, that we uphold the level 2 decision of the administration and deny the grievance.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, next item on the agenda is a calendar. 12.1, February 26, 2025, we will have a regular board meeting. March 12, 2025, regular board meeting. March 17th through the 21st, 2025, celebrating spring break. There will be no school. March 26, 2025, special called board meeting, student recognitions. Next on the agenda is 13. Do I have any remarks from the board before we adjourn, or from superintendent?
I have a couple of announcements.
Yes, ma'am.
Blanca is going to bring up a couple of key announcements. Thank you very much. So again, just want to continue to remind our community that we are still and going to continue to engage in strategic planning. Really want to continue to engage with our community around our vision for the future, your voice, our future, around what our plans are for the next years to come together. So as you see, this next round of strategic planning are our town hall meetings, and they are an all call for our educators. So you will see that this round is around elementary educators, high school educators, middle school, as well as then elementary parents, high school parents, and middle school parents. And so the dates are here. Selena, are you okay?
Yes, it could have been a disaster, but I'm okay.
Okay, we're so glad. Thank you. So just want to, again, really encourage people to come out. Really wanted to break these meetings down because getting elementary educators and high school educators in the same space Is not always a great idea. So we want to make sure that every group of our educators has their own space to voice their vision for the future, what's working well and where they want to see us go, as well as elementary parents, high school, middle school parents. So please, please, please come out and share your vision for our district from your perspective. It is super important to me and to our board. Next announcement is that it is time for pre-K and kinder roundup. We are so excited to start our pre-K and kindergarten student registration kickoff event this Saturday, is February 15th from 9 to 11 at the planetarium. We are very excited to get started bringing in our new pre-K3 and pre-K4 kids. If you are already a pre-K3 student in our district, please come out and register for pre-K4. We are excited to have you. Our pre-K program is essential in laying a really strong foundation for kinder to make sure that you are kinder ready. So, I mean, look at these cuties, right? So come on out and register. We will be at the planetarium. We are excited to see you. So Miss Claudia Gomez Perez and her team are going to be there, ready, willing, and supporting our parents to get you registered for pre-K. Thank you. Next one. And then lastly, Miss Jamie Miller and her amazing team in partnership with Dr. Little are launching the Leadership Pathways for Future Campus Leaders. One of our district priorities is very clear around high-quality leadership and our dedication to excellence in leadership. And so we have also want to be really clear that developing leaders from within our district is an incredible high priority for us. And so we are launching a Pathway to Principalship program and also the Steps to Leadership program. And so one of those programs is for our APs who are aspiring to be principals. And so we are excited to encourage our APs to step up and lead campuses. And then also the Steps to Leadership program are for our teachers, counselors, educators who then aspire to be assistant principals and principals in the future. And so again, we want to develop talent from within our district. And so here are the QR codes. Applications were sent to employees in our district. But again, for more information, please contact Talent Development, and Robin Garcia's information is right here. But again, it shows our commitment, the district's commitment, our board's commitment to developing talent right here in La Jolla ISD, because we have faith and commitment to our wonderful employees in this district. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Members of the board, do we have any closing comments or anything? Just want to take this opportunity again and thank the presenters today. Y'all did an amazing job and continue the great work that you do. Thank you for keeping us so well informed and educating us at every board meeting that we have. So we really appreciate that. Well, with that said, do I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
I move to adjourn this meeting at 10:03 p.m.
Do I have a second?
Second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. We are adjourned. Good night, everyone.